Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I'm joined by George Novick, a staggeringly bald baritone, audio guy of ill repute, and voiceoverister with delusions of mediocrity. Welcome to the show, George.
Thank you so much. The delusions are strong, I assure you.
Wonderful. So here's how this works. George will have 3 minutes to talk about something that he loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything he wants. Our only requirement is that he loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, George?
I am so ready.
Good. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so fricking much?
Here we go. Music, audio, voiceover, anything that has to do with the art form that is written on the canvas of time. You can't see it, but it's there and you hear it. You see it with your ears, for lack of a better description. For the last 20-something years, I have been obsessed with everything that has to do with audio, be it recording music for session work or doing voiceover or writing music or any of it. There's just something about audio mediums that raises all of the hair on my arms. If I had any on my head, it would raise it there too, but it doesn't because there isn't anything there. Just something about music and chords and audio and hearing things that can move you is very, very much my passion in life. Getting into voiceover and audio stuff at the same time ended up being a really great tandem relationship because as I progressed in each arena, I found that one complemented the other. And as a result, I ended up being somebody who does a lot of voiceover work, but also understands the technology of recording. And that has come in really handy where I don't necessarily need an engineer in the event that there isn't one available. I've got all that handled. I know how to mix albums and I know how to insert voice into productions. It's a great skill set to have, and they just feed and complement my need to scratch that musical itch or satisfy my audio tooth, for lack of a better description. And that's where I am on that. The last couple of years, I've kind of deviated away from doing a lot of corporate narration and medical narration into more commercial-related stuff, and I'm finding that it is a completely different world unto its own. I have sounded like I belong on radio since I was 14 years old, and what I found is that on the air, nobody wants to be talked at anymore. Everybody kind of wants to be talked with, and I have had to learn to change how I talk, and it's come in really handy from time to time. However, when I'm normally talking, this is what you get.
All right. Thank you for telling us about all things audio today.
You are so welcome.
You mentioned that you've had a voice for radio since the age of 14. Were there any memories or any moments in particular around then that started your interest in audio or in audio performance?
Actually, yeah. I worked at a KFC in the drive-thru, and I was routinely told, you should be in radio. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then one day, some guy came up and said, you belong in radio. And I said, thank you. And he said, no, I'm serious. And he handed me a business card, and he said, call me.
Oh, wow.
And I said, great. And I did. I think I was 15 by that point. But I did the first thing that any self-respecting 15-year-old will do, and that is lose the business card, which ended up working out really well because the only career path I can think of where I would have earned less money than the KFC drive-thru is radio. But hearing that constantly kind of sparked the idea that, maybe I should learn how to record stuff. And I'd been a piano player and a bass player for years up to that point anyway. So it all kind of coalesced into this dream world.
It's really interesting that it started at a drive-through because I don't think anyone would, when you talk about audio production, audio performance, would think of drive-throughs, but that is an all audio experience there.
It really, really is, at least until you get to the window and then you have somebody to complain to face to face. But up until that point, it's over an intercom, and it is definitely an interactive audio medium that predates podcasts and all the rest of this.
Talk a little more about what it's like being a voiceover artist.
It is very interesting in that as a voice actor and a voiceover artist or voiceoverister, you are a, generally speaking, one-person business because it's not about having a quote-unquote good voice, because everybody who tells you that you have a good voice is also conveniently nobody who is going to pay you for that voice. So there's a lot involved in training. Voice actor has two words to it, voice and actor. Half your job title is actor. So if you don't have any of those chops and you want to get into voice acting, find an acting coach stat and then go from there. And there are many genres you can work in. You don't have to try to get into commercial, which is excruciatingly competitive. You can do narration for companies, just like for product promotion internally. You can do e-learning, working with instructional designers and narrate their projects, because unless you're doing it as a sit and get because it's a requirement for compliance and you actually want people to learn the thing that you're trying to teach them, you gotta have a voice that's going to be able to draw them in. And that has served me really well over the years. And then there's video games, and then there's animation dubbing. There are many different fields of voiceover that you can get into. It's just a matter of finding people who are doing it, asking them questions, and figuring out if that's the arena you want to be in.
You mentioned before that people don't really seem to want to be talked at anymore. They want to be talked with. I think that ties really well with what you just said about how even if you're doing something that is instructional, which you might think would be the perfect opportunity to be talking at someone, if people aren't actually feeling engaged, they're not going to listen, and then they won't learn.
Exactly. In fact, I'll give you an example because I got a piece of paper from a tool that I just received. If you hear the following sentence, this adapter barrel is designed to allow older 12T microphones to be operated from newer devices that output 48 pH microphone power. That's a sit and get. This adapter barrel is designed to allow older 12T microphones to be operated from newer devices that output 48 pH microphone power. Two completely different deliveries. I'll let you all, as the listener, decide which one was the one that may or may not have drawn you in more.
I think you just proved your point about the usefulness of learning about acting in becoming a voiceover actor.
Exactly. Acting is so important because even if you're doing the most boring corporate narration you could ever conceivably think of, you're still an actor. You are still in a role, and your character's job is to engage the people who are listening in the best way that you possibly can.
You mentioned before that understanding the technology behind all things audio has helped you as a performer. Can you talk a little more about that?
Absolutely. Not every voice actor needs to be or wants to be some form of expert in audio engineering. And that tracks because a voice actor wants to act. Obviously, they have to keep track of all of the business-related things and marketing and sales. But when they're in the booth and they're in a directed session and they are doing a live read or they're doing an audition, they don't want to worry about whether or not there's enough compression on the signal. Pro tip, don't compress your signal. They don't want to have to worry about any of that. They want to get in, turn on their recording device, read the thing, and get out. They don't want to have to worry about the audio engineering side of things. I, by freak chance, ended up tandem growing both of those two arenas at the same time. So I've got the benefit of knowing all of the equipment and understanding how microphones work. I've built a microphone before, and it was a really fascinating process. But that's an arena that most voice actors shouldn't have to delve into. If they have that skill set, it's beneficial, but it's not required.
Is there anything that you don't like about audio or working in audio? And if so, how do you handle that?
I think if there's anything I don't like about audio and working in it is that sometimes computer hardware and software can be unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
And in the example of doing a remote recording session I was hired to bring microphones to somebody to record something. And I always come in with a backup because very, very rarely does it happen. But the digital audio workstation on my laptop in the middle of the recording crashed. But I had a second microphone and I had a second recording device ready and it was going, and I was able to get the entire thing by pulling it off of the backup device. But every once in a while, hardware and software do not cooperate, and they crash. This was not a problem in the old days if you wanted to drag a reel-to-reel around or a portable DAT recorder. Or in my case, I used a solid-state recorder whose only job is to record things. There's no software. There's very little hardware. And having those backup devices that are more reliable are a really good idea. But yeah, software that crashes and hardware that goes kaput are definitely not my favorite thing.
It just goes to show, like you said before, learning more about how the tech works and what your options are and what the pros and cons of different devices can be are going to help you in the long run.
Exactly. I recorded a barbershop quartet once, and my audio interface's second channel conked out, and I needed a stereo recording. So what I ended up doing was they had a video camera because this was a video recording that they were doing. I was able to marry the audio from the video camera to the one channel of microphone close-up that I had, and it turned out that it sounded really good. But again, that was a hardware failure that I had not thought would happen, but because of the background, I was able to take the resources that were available to me at the time and make it work. It's stressful at times, but good grief, I love it.
George, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to finally get to talk to you.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about all things audio or our guest George, you can find his website in the episode description. And if you have something you love so freaking much you want to tell me all about it, consider this your invitation to join the show. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all the social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.